All right, it's time for me to show you the projects that I've been working on this week. I have some finishes to show, so I'm excited about that. So, okay, the first one is this bag that I made um, on Sunday in my primary class. So, my husband and I, so we're members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and we teach the 10-year-old primary class. And the lesson was on unity. And one of the things that is important to understand about unity is that we can be different and still be unified. That's really important to me because the idea is really close to my heart. I'm not the same as most people. I could be an acquired taste, I guess. And I can still be unified with other people in my faith and in all kinds of things, in projects at work. Like it doesn't mean just because I'm different or weird, doesn't mean that I'm not wanted or important or I can't contribute to a greater whole. And this is the idea that we were supposed to teach in the manual. It even suggested that we bring in a quilt. And I said, oh, I'll do one better. We'll make a quilt. So what we did is we handed out little scraps of fabric to our primary kids, and each of the colors was different. So one kid had all the yellow, one kid had all the blue, one kid had all the green. And we went around the room and talked about like one thing that is that color. And it turns out that the colors are all different and they all like make that like they all there's different things that are of different colors, like they're like emphasizing that they're different. And then I showed them that we were going to put them together to create a new fabric and create a greater whole. So we were going to give this bag to our primary teacher. We're actually going to put a little gift inside, write our testimonies, and gift her something nice and give it to her together. So yeah, so I put the foundation fabric on it was actually a linen napkin from Danny's grandma. Actually, I think this one was from my grandma. Anyway, there were two linen napkins that were already square and already had the edges finished, and they're pink, so they're like this. Let me open the bag. Yeah, so yeah, they're going to be the same color. I thought it'd be a good choice. I didn't line the bag. I probably could have, but I didn't. And I had the kids pin, well, with Danny's help, pin their fabric, their pieces where they wanted it, and then right in class, which I think they thought was the cool part. I had already set up my sewing machine, but then I just sewed straight lines right down the top and then right across. So like I didn't fold anything, so there were all these raw edges. So then I went back and I had a whole bunch of when I got my loom, I got a whole bunch of these spools of. I think some of it's rayon, some is wool, some is cotton, some is some kind of unknown fiber from the 70s or 80s, who knows? But I used some blue. I think it's just cotton. And I just learned how to make some crazy stitches. I actually really liked it. It was really, really fun. If I was going to do it again, I would make the stitches a lot smaller, but I wanted to get it done, so I just went ahead and did it as fast as I could. I also went through my stash, and I had a bunch of like fun buttons, and I didn't weave in any of the ends, which you'll probably see like there's some sticking outy ones, and it's not perfect, but whatever. Um, I'm happy with it, and I'm pretty sure the primary president will be happy with it too. Um, when we were moving, we put away like all of the craft stuff. Um, so it's interesting because like a shortage of craft stuff makes it so that crafting becomes more creative. Like it's always this way, even with writing. Like when you have an open-ended topic to write about, it's really hard to write something creative. But when you have a very specific set of parameters, then you can just go crazy and like explore those bounds and like push them as far as you can. And so that's kind of what happened when we were moving. Like we had no craft stuff except for like a few very, very basic things like some paint. And I happened to have like a giant stash of buttons. So me and my kids just like painted a bunch of buttons. So these are actually just like vintage buttons with just simple like craft paint on them. This one right here, I'm not sure you can really see that, but it's decoupaged with a small woodchuck face. And I just think it's super funny. Maybe it's a river otter. I'm not sure. I didn't put this on the bag, but in that collection, because it was actually like a little brochure for the state of Iowa, because we're moving from Iowa to Utah, and in the brochure it had pictures of like river, like the river otter or the woodchuck or whatever it was, also Sacagawea and Lewis and Clark. So I like cut out and decoupaged two buttons that were about this big with Lewis and Clark, and I really want to make a set of earrings out of them because yeah, I'm the weird square on the unified whole, right? But yeah, so at the end, I also asked them if they wanted to use a trial quilt block that I had been. So I've been making these paper piece patterns for the temple, not for sale, but just to share my love of the temple. I'm planning on offering them for free, and I'll share the patterns here for sure. But this was my first one and my first trial of creating my own paper piece pattern. And yeah, this is the Orem temple, and there's definitely issues with this pattern, but the block came out pretty good, and I didn't want it to just sit there as a trial block. And I'm pretty sure that our primary president will like this. Then I realized that there needed to be some more stitching so that it could be more secure. I didn't really want to use my sewing machine because I'd already like put the whole bag together. So I was like, oh, I'll just use that same. I still had that thread. Then I didn't realize how much it would look like it was raining, but I actually kind of like it. I think it's beautiful. And yeah, as you can see, there's like you can see the stitching on the inside. I also was very lax about how I finished it. Like, yeah, basically I just zigzagged over the edges on the inside. The seams of the liners were already finished, like I said before, because they were napkins. So this is just like coming over and reinforcing the seam oh, like serging, but not like poor man serging. I mean, I was making all of this on my 1981 Bernina 830, so it's not that complicated. Oh yeah, and at the bottom I already had like a piece of quilted whatever from some other project. So anyway, I think she'll like this bag. It took me one day to make. I spent most of the day making it on Sunday, and at the family dinner I just finished it up. Oh yeah, also the these handles, they're scraps from the backing of a quilt project that is still in progress. And I didn't really like how thin they were, so I just added some more of that like sashiko big stitch with the same thread, and it ends up being like more textured. I don't know if it's really more secure. Anyway, maybe she can use it as a church bag or something, but I was happy with this bag because it was the first time I really understood the way to construct a bag, like where you have it be in like this shape and you sew the seams down the side, and then you like twist it around and you sew the straight seam on the bottom. I cannot explaining it very well, and I'm sure if I watch this video myself later, I will not know what I'm talking about because my brain doesn't work very well in terms of like 3D and backwards and changing non-flat objects. Like with quilting, everything is flat. So it's really easy to see how it's constructed. Like you just look at it and it's like, okay, that's very clear. But with sewing, since it's 3D and you have to do it from reverse and backwards, then it's like a very big mind puzzle. And I'm just not very experienced with that yet. And it always trips me up. Like I have to follow a pattern, but I'm very bad at following patterns. It's not a very natural way for my brain to work. So usually the way that sewing works best for me is if I watch a tutorial of someone doing it, and then I can do it. And like seeing it on paper doesn't always make sense the way that like a crochet pattern or a knitting pattern or a like any quilting pattern or even quilt without a pattern like would make sense in my mind. Okay, so that's the first project that I finished. Okay, this next project, this is a quilt top. I made this for the Quilt Guild. This is a charity blanket, and it is, here we go. Let's see. It is my very, very, very wonky, I can scoot back a little bit. It's my very wonky blanket. It's like wonky piano keys. So I can turn it around and you can see. So in this quilt, it does mostly lay flat. What I'm going, so you can see that there's, you can get this out of the frame so you can see the hair. Go. There we go. You can see that it is bigger on the two edges. And you can also see that it's kind of like these edges kind of are warping out like this a little bit. And that's just because I didn't do any measuring or anything with this. I just went for it. And you can see that it's a little bit wonky here. I tried to make the wonkiness be part of the charm of the pattern. I tried to make it look purposeful, but I think I didn't do it enough. In the future, I'm going to make it a little bit more wobbly so that it can be clear that I'm not just a bad seamstress, although, you know, I'm not the best, but it can be clear that that was a design choice and not just me making mistakes. But the reason why I tried this is because I didn't really want to follow a pattern. I just kind of wanted to go for it. The fabric, I switched out some of the fabric, like this is from my stash. I think the red might be from, I think this blue is from my stash, and the red and the light blue was included in the fabric that they gave in the bag for charity quilt. I think since it's not the exact perfect square, the way to make it be acceptable to the guild will be for me to finish the quilt completely and make sure that it is cut square at the end. So I think I'm not going to, because like this was supposed to be a top, and then somebody else will be the next person to quilt it. And a lot of times these are people who have a long arm and they're just practicing, and so it's a win-win because they have material to practice on, but they also like they're doing something that will give back. Like these are all charity quilts. So, but I think I'm just going to quilt this myself so that I don't get like complaints that it's not laying flat, even though it does lay flat, but it is wonky and I can cut it to be perfectly square on the edges. It just won't look square in the middle, but that was on purpose. And the reason is because I wanted to see, well, I guess the main thing I learned from this is that, yeah, I can do fun, creative things, but if I want it to really look like it's supposed to be wonky, you kind of have to really overdo that. Like you have to make sure that the lines really are a lot more diagonal. Because like, sorry, but these piano keys, they're just too straight. And except that they're not. Like you can see there's a pucker right here because it wasn't perfectly straight, but which means it doesn't lay perfectly flat. But also, like if I press it really good, and if I when I'm quilting, I'm intentional about like pushing down the puckers, it will lay flat. So I'm happy with this. It was a quick, easy project. The hardest part was honestly like trying to decide what pattern I was going to use, and I really didn't like any of the patterns because like those 3-meter quilts, they just none of them really appealed to me. I wanted to do something that was more my own. I'm sure someone's done that pattern before. It's just like literally I took strips, sewed them all together, then I had like these long, long strips, and then I just made a log cabin out of it. But it kind of makes this cool secondary pattern. It's nice. Okay, the next thing that I want to show that I finished was my very first lace adventure. So actually it's right here. I'm wearing it. I can show you. This is this kerchief. Here we go. So as you can see, Oh, there's an end here that I need to cut, but whatever. We'll just turn it around so you don't have to look at that. You can see that I ran out of yarn right here. Here. So I switched yarns. So that was kind of bad. This is some cheapo crapo sock weight acrylic yarn that I only had like a very tiny bit, and I was like, I'll just try it with that. And then this right here is some cheapo crapo, again, with I got it from when I got my loom. It was just like a little skein of I think it's cotton, which is kind of interesting because like the cotton and the acrylic, the cotton ended up stretching way more when I blocked it. Okay, so when I made this, it was like this big. And when I blocked it, it like way bloomed. It like got so big. I love it. And I also made sure to steam press it so that it would like kind of kill the acrylic so that the acrylic would like I can never unwind this now because the plastic has melted together. Also, it's like slightly softer. Anyway, it was my very first foray into lace making, and the pattern, I'll link it in the description because it was a free pattern from Creative Crochet Corner. Um, this is the kind of pattern that my grandma would have loved. Like my grandma did all kinds of crochet projects just like this. Let's see, what's the name of the creator? It was like Barbara Anderson or something. Um, but anyway, it ended up that yeah, I didn't even print the pattern. I just printed the chart. It turns out that these charts are super useful. So unlike um, so like unlike sewing, crochet is a lot easier for me to follow a pattern if I have like a visual, like the written directions. Like I'll get lost in them, but a picture, it's perfect. I could follow this so easily. It was like, I think it was maybe a 4-hour project for me, and I got a lot faster towards the end because I started to see the pattern. Like at first, it was really, really hard for me to notice the pattern. I did notice that after I printed out these things, like I really had to highlight what row I was in so that I could know and follow along the directions. I really like how you can see that there's like these like cool flowers inside of the lace. I'll definitely make this again. This next time I'm gonna use this like little wool, much finer yarn. And I'll probably use a smaller gauge hook. I used a 2.75 millimeter hook, which is pretty small, but like honestly for lace, it's not that small. I could use like a 1 millimeter hook and um, maybe 1.5. I don't know. Maybe even smaller. We'll see. I'm definitely gonna try to make it again. I think in the future I'm gonna do like an extra row on the front edge though, and I might do some like I-cord um like handle or like ties that you could tie around the front if you wanted to, or like all the way around the front and then around the back. That sounds like it could be cool. Okay, so the very last bang. Well, I just threw that stuff over here and onto a pile of my new gadgets that I got from Amazon. They're very basic, and just to see if I like this technique, and I'm pretty sure I will. But these right here are my Tunisian crochet hooks. So basically, they look like an aluminum knitting needle, but it's a crochet hook. So I'm really excited to try it. I think this goes up to size, the biggest one is 8 millimeters, and the smallest one is 2 millimeters. So that gives me a pretty big, range of options for styles. And I was, I found some YouTubers talking about how like with Tunisian crochet, you kind of want to size up in your needle. Um, so that was kind of interesting. One of the reasons why I want to explore Tunisian crochet is because a lot of the old patterns that I've been looking at on De Bazaar, um, which by the way is a German magazine, not Czech, which like it was translated into Czech later, but like, bah! um, lots more on that later, I'm sure. Well, they referenced Tunisian crochet, and so it was a craft that like people knew, and so I want to know it. Okay, so the very last finish that I have to show you is something I'm going to keep for myself. Well, I'm going to keep this too. Not going to keep that bag, but a lot of the times there's a lot of the things that I make I don't end up keeping. My husband really kind of gets mad at me for that. He's like, you need to keep more of your stuff. But I don't think I could give this away because it's just so cool. This is my one of my first woven scarves, and I wove it on the rigid heddle loom that my husband and kids printed, 3D printed for me for Christmas. And it's made out of the Caron Simply Soft um, yarn. It's like this pink, but it's like fluorescent and iridescent. Like, I'm not sure if you can really see the colors, but like it is bright, but not only bright, but it like fluoresces. Like, if you see this pink color in a different brand of yarn, like I've seen it in like the Big Twist or like Red Heart or whatever, like the other budget brand yarns, like they have this bright hot pink, but it doesn't iridesce and turn like slightly blue. In fact, when I was pressing this, like when I was blocking it, I was using my steam iron, and like it literally turned slightly purple when I pressed it, and I was like, oh no, I've ruined it. But then it like disappeared after a minute, which was like very weird. It'd be really cool to catch that on camera, but I don't think I have a good enough quality camera, and I do not have the interest in video editing whatsoever. So anyway, this was really fun. The selvages were a little wonky, so I ended up just hemming them down. I did a stitch where like you can't really see it very much on the front, like you can see it a little bit, but mostly the stitches show in the back. And that means that there's definitely a front and a back to this, which isn't my favorite, but that's okay. Also, the warp was a lace weight cotton, just like a crochet cotton, the kind that you can buy in those big giant hoops at or skeins at Walmart, you know. So, but what's interesting about using red, so I like actually it was in my weaving class. I took a weaving class couple months ago, and the weaving instructor and the other students, like, we talked about our own design for a project, and I brought in this crazy yarn. So we spent some time discussing what the warp would be that would really show off the yarn. And we found out that this red was very much the same value as the yarn. And what ends up happening is, since it's so thin, then it actually gets mostly covered up by the weft, which is what I wanted. But where it does show through, since it's the same value, it just kind of fades away as like a shadow. And I really like that effect because, like, first of all, you would never know that there was red in this, but it's the same value. It doesn't take away, and you can really see that texture. And like, the texture is so satisfying. I just love it. In the future, I will probably make sure that my scarf is not quite so giant. Although, actually, the truth is, I really like long scarves. I think that it's kind of annoying when the scarves are wussy and short, but like this one's a little bit ridiculous. But actually, it's almost like a shawl, and I love it. Like, this is one of my very favorite things that I have ever made, ever. Which is really saying something because I've made a lot of things, but like, it's so loud and hilarious. And can you imagine like going to church and wrapped up in a scarf like this, like, or going down the ski slope or whatever? It's very much a conversation piece. You could never buy this at the store. And I also crocheted a beanie, or it was actually a beret, for my daughter because she really liked the idea of having like a really big pop of color. But I have enough yarn left over that I'm going to make myself a beret. I didn't have a pattern. I just like winged it, and it turned out great. I should show that, but I don't know where it is. It's probably lost in the depths of her room. But Lasai. Anyway, those are my finishes for this week so far, and I'll update you on my finishes next week.